Here's a pie chart on how people have consumed music. So we're going to refer back to this pie chart a lot over the course of the video. Let's take a look at 2002, the year before the iTunes Store was introduced. The red here represents CDs, which make up 94.8%. Almost the entirety of music consumption, well, legal music consumption, belonged to CDs during the early 2000s. Now let's get to 2014.
Whoa, what happened here?
In 2002, CDs made up everything legal, but almost everything. And now with all this weirdness, sound exchange distributions, kiosks, synchronization,
Now we're going to take a look at just why all of this has changed, but also how it's come full circle, and where it's going next.
I'm going to start actually before 2002. I'm going to start in 1999. Sean Fanning begins working on a program called Napster, which is a nickname he got from somebody making fun of his hair. Look at it. Napster. This website makes it easy for people to swap files.
This is through what's known as peer-to-peer sharing. Basically, it allows people to exchange audio files with other people, which is good when you're sending songs from your Fire mixtape to your friends, but not so good if you're uploading copyrighted files to a service where everyone can download those files for free, like Napster, and Kazaa, and LimeWire. But back to Napster.
Right from the beginning, there were discussions over whether or not it was illegal, and whether or not it treats artists fairly, because, well, everyone's swapping files, but the artists aren't getting paid.
Despite this, it was a massive success, sweeping the 2000 Movie Awards and getting mentions in Time Magazine and Fortune, as well as praise from other artists. So why isn't Napster around today? Or, at least while it is around, why isn't it as relevant as it once was? Unfortunately, as you could probably guess, things came to a head, and on December 6th, 1999, Napster was sued by the RIAA. They're the people that provided the statistics we look at the beginning of the video. It was a very messy lawsuit. This kind of thing is not what Napster wanted. Elizabeth Brooks, who was the vice president of marketing at the time, said this in an oral history of Napster. We were really becoming a company of litigation and not an innovative, disruptive technology company, which is what we wanted to be and what we were born as. Elizabeth goes on to talk about how if they won the lawsuit, the business would turn to a paid subscription model instead. So essentially what they were going to do, even if Napster won, is change it so they could continue innovating and not be who they currently were. And by the way, that paid subscription model does sound a bit familiar, but we'll get to that. But piracy is still rampant at this time. So what's coming next? Enter iTunes. The iPod was released in 2001, as was the iTunes application, but once the iTunes Store was released in 2004, things really took off. So the iTunes Store isn't exactly an overnight success, but it's definitely close. As you can see, it kind of steadily increases, starting to catch on in 2004, 1.1%, and then you go to 2005, that becomes 3%, and by the time you get to 2008, a year after the iPhone was produced, the download single has increased to 11.8%, and the download album has increased to 7.2%. It's not like it overtook CDs, but considering where we were in 2002, that's definitely a change. At this point, I think I should say that I've been lying to you this whole time. That this is not actually how people consume music. This is music consumption revenue, or how bands get money from people consuming their music. And one way they're going to get money is synchronization. And this is synchronization rights, which RIAA started tracking in 2009. These are where the music is synced up to a video, like a commercial or a TV show. So I guess a great example of that would be, this is way before RIAA did anything, but a band like Death Cab for Cutie.
Do not insult Death Cab.
It's like one guitar and a whole lot of complaining.
Or a band like Snow Patrol could get national fame from their appearances in shows like The O.C. and Grey's Anatomy, respectively. And those are very useful because not only will the band get money for having their song used in syncs, but it'll also result in more exposure, so people can download the song on iTunes, or even through touring, which is how most bands make their money anyway. Now, because Apple has somewhat crushed the competition, in the late 2000s, a bunch of companies are trying to come up with alternatives, things that will either kill iTunes altogether, or at least drive it away. So I've been talking about kiosks a lot. That's because, to me, they miss the entire point of why people would consume music more in the first place. If there's one thing I've seen, even through synchronization, even through Napster and to Spotify, which I promise we're going to get to soon, music becomes more convenient. So you're going to start with a vinyl record, to a CD, to an iPhone that you can fit in your pocket while you do like 17 other things at once. So really a kiosk where you can go in, download music to a flash drive. People have tried to make it happen again and again over the years, but for the most part, hasn't really caught on. So it's still going to be a while before digital music overtakes CDs, but I think one of the final nails in the CD's coffin is Spotify, a streaming service where anyone can listen to music for free. One of the investors for that is Sean Parker, one of the original investors for Napster, as well as for Facebook, because when I say Sean Parker, you're probably picturing Justin Timberlake. Spotify is an upstart that started in Sweden in 2008 and then came to us in 2011. According to a 2013 article in the New York Times, services like Spotify that are cloud streaming actually increased by 44%. So I think it's safe to say that it's a runaway success in comparison to some of the other things we've looked at. And, it seems like at this point, labels are happy, audiences are happy, everyone's happy, and Spotify is the be-all, end-all. This is where you would be wrong. Spotify has gotten a lot of criticism for how it pays artists, because it only pays artists 0.007 cents per stream, and that is a very small amount of money. You could take a song like Royals by Lorde, it's, kind of old, but it has around 257 million plays. So we can see how much that is. She still gets $1 million, but considering you have to pay producer, publishers, label, considering there's a lot of middlemen, even for somebody presumably indie like Lorde does not get the amount of money she probably would have had. Whatever, she's still driving Cadillacs in her dream. And she's also touring, which, as I said before, is how most artists make their money. Nonetheless, it's still resulted in people like Taylor Swift pulling their music off of Spotify. To be honest, it's kind of hard to say where it's going to go from here. There's definitely a shift going on even right now. And it's going to be interesting to see the competitors to that, like Jay-Z and Beyonce's Tidal, a bunch of other services. In fact, even Apple is getting in on streaming soon and is trying to get deals from labels and is even trying to scare some people away from Spotify. But as for CDs and as for even iTunes and where that's going to go, it's definitely going to be interesting to see.
So this pie chart actually stretches back for 41 years, and I've always found it fascinating to see how it goes from cassettes to CDs, how CDs gradually takes over, and then bam, all this new stuff is coming in. The next thing on that list, the next thing on that pie chart, might not even exist yet.